and welcome to Diecast Restos for another comparison video. I'm Jason, and this week I'm restoring two almost identical castings from two different manufacturers. I have both the Morestone or Morestone Esso Petrol Pump Series No. 3 AA Road Service Jeep, as they called it on the box, and the Benbros Mighty Midget No. 34 AA Road Service Land Rover. The Morestone arrived in 1956, with the Benbros coming in 1957. These two models are often confused for one another, or even for Matchbox models in the case of the Morestone. As both are so similar to one another, I thought I'd restore both of them at the same time. We'll quickly discover they aren't as closely matched as at first glance I expect. This Benbros model is severely damaged to its frail base plate, so that'll be one of the first things that I address. Here's a Benbros Land Rover in a better state of repair with a straight base, while this is a Morestone that actually has some colour to it. There are few pictures of hard-bodied AA Land Rovers without watermarks covering them, though I did find this back end of one in service. Benbros was formalised in 1951 as the name used by brothers Jack and Nathan Benenson, who had begun manufacturing diecast toys in the late 1940s. Until now, they had used both the Benson or Benson Bros names. Benbros launched their line of diecast miniatures in 1954, the year after Lesney had begun producing the Matchbox series. The new range was called the TV series, as the boxes represented 1950s television sets. The series was relaunched in 1956 and received a new name, Mighty Midgets. The range was expanded from the original 23 of the TV series to 50 by 1958. Both collections featured a wide array of models including horses, carts, coaches, motorcycles, cars and articulated lorries. While the quality and manufacturing process were not always the greatest, as seen with this bent base, the variety of pieces and range of colours gave them good play value. Jack and Nathan Benenson sold their business in 1965 and production of the toys ceased. This Land Rover launched in 1957 alongside a Green Army Land Rover with plain sides and a red Royal Mail Land Rover which had Royal Mail E2R cast in. The Benbros AA Land Rovers were painted varying shades of yellow all over, including the wheels. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I'll stay true to form and restore these faithfully. It did receive silver trim to its grille and front bumper though. One of the biggest issues with Benbros models is the build quality and the quality of the materials used. I could have heated the base to make it more malleable to bend it back into shape here, but it just felt so fragile. This break was bound to happen. It was a really odd choice to leave a hole in the middle of the base casting. Now I hoped that I could salvage it by using superglue. The bases were connected to the body via a forward tongue and slot fitment and a narrow rear rivet post. Unlike the Morestone version, it clearly had Benbros Qualitoys and Made in England cast into the base piece. The rear was left open on this casting, which exposed much of the rear rivet post. Aside from the front grille, there were no extra trim details added to the rest of the model. As I'd already glued the Benbros base together, I opted to use my gentler liquid paint stripper to remove what was left of the yellow paint. Alongside Leslie Smith, Rodney Smith had formed Lesney in 1947. He left in 1951 before the launch of the Matchbox series. Smith then joined up with Sam Morris of Morestone. Morestone, then known by the contraction Morestone, launched the Esso Petrol Pump series in 1956. Of which this Land Rover, or Jeep as it was labelled on the boxes, formed part of. The first 10 petrol pump models went on sale in 1956. The boxes were shaped like Esso fuel pumps. Within a year, the range had expanded to 20 models. However, this was as far as the range would expand. The Land Rover was produced for only 2 years until 1958. For 1959, Morestone launched the Budgie Miniatures range. While some Esso models carried over to the new series, the Land Rover didn't. The Budgie Toys name replaced the Morestone brand and was acquired by S. Guiterman in 1961. While they went out of business in 1966, a company called Modern Products Limited produced some budgie castings through until 1969. Modern Products Foundry happened to be located next door to the Morestone Stone factory. So compared to the Benbros model, the Morestone has some pros and some cons. They were similar in that they each had cast-in grille details, AA road service features on the sides, and had crimped axle ends connected to a base which secured via a rear rivet post and front-facing tongue and slot fitments. But the Morestone had an AA badge and registration plate to the front, though these were not trimmed. Neither were the headlights, grille or front bumper. It also had some finer bonnet hinge details. The rear lets it down a little, being a simple plated back, not featuring any attempt at a tailgate or windows. The cast lettering on each is very similar, but the Morestone benefited from its painted black trim. It also had a painted roof. The Benbros did have a bit of extra cast detailing to the roof, however. From this footage you can see the difference in the quality of the metal. The Benbros is quite tarnished and pitted. The wheels of the Morestone have a little more detail than the hub-like ones of the Benbros. They were also painted black, which is a big positive for me. The base of the Morestone simply had Made in England printed on it. With no markings identifying the manufacturer, it meant that the model was, and still is, often confused for a Matchbox or for the Benbros. That's actually how I picked up my model, as it had been incorrectly listed on eBay. This base piece also had a gaunt-looking cast-in driver, something which the Benbros lacked. The Morestone initially came with a hole in the bonnet, to which a spare metal wheel was attached. This was painted black and was held in place by a short crimped pin. It was quickly removed, making this quite a rare and valuable variation. Some of these earlier models did also have some hand-painted grille trim. So, my assessment of the two. On the whole, the Morestone wins. Its black roof and side trim, black wheels, front end cast detailing, solid base and addition of the driver are winning traits for me. But it could benefit from some of what the Benbros Land Rover has, such as the cast roof details, grille trim, and its open rear that gives a bit of visual interest from the back. However, the Benbros is seriously let down by its metal quality, which I'm having to give a second coat of thicker primer here, as well as the structural rigidity of the base, which is a major flaw. For the paint colours, I'm giving the wheels of the Morestone a coat of black, as they rightfully should have. On the body of the Morestone, I have chosen to paint it Tamiya TS16 yellow, quite a light, almost lemony shade. Whereas with the Benbros, I'll be using TS47 chrome yellow, which is a touch darker. I've chosen to do this in order to best match the paint I originally had on each model. Also, the Benbros will be getting that same yellow on the wheels, which sends a shiver down my spine. Seeing as the models were released in 1956 and 1957 respectively, each would have been based on the original Land Rover, retrospectively referred to as the Series 1. These were built from 1948 until 1958, when the Series 2 replaced it. The Land Rover was a change in direction for the Rover company, who in 1947 were looking to move away from producing luxury cars post-war. Rover's chief designer Maurice Wilks came up with a philosophy of a light utility vehicle for agricultural use, similar in concept to the Willys Jeep. After prototypes were built later that year, the Land Rover went into production in 1948. It was launched at that year's Amsterdam Motor Show. The Land Rover had a steel box section chassis, aluminium body, and until 1951 was a single model. This had a 50 horsepower 1.6 litre petrol engine, a 4-speed gearbox, 2-speed transfer box, and an 80-inch wheelbase. The tops for the doors and either a canvas or metal roof were optional extras. A station wagon version without the Spartan agricultural interior was first offered by coach builders Tickford in 1949, though it didn't sell well as it was taxed as a private car. In 1950, the headlights moved from behind the grille to protruding through. Then in 1952, a larger 2-litre engine was fitted to the Land Rover. The 80-inch body was replaced by an 86-inch one in 1954, and a 107-inch pickup was an option. The first 5-door model arrived in 1955 based on the 107-inch chassis, marking a return of the station wagon design. These could seat 10 on bench seating. A 7-seater 3-door version on the 86-inch chassis was also produced. These both came following a change in tax laws. They also had an option for a tropical roof, which offered a second skin to the roof of the vehicle. In 1956, chassis were extended by 2 inches to 88 and 109 inches respectively, while the front chassis crossmember was moved forward to accommodate a new 2-litre diesel engine that would arrive in 1957. This diesel unit was one of the first high-speed diesels developed for road use, producing 52 horsepower. Come 1958, and the Land Rover was replaced by the Series 2, the first to receive the attention of Rover's styling department. These are distinguished by their barrel side waistline with a 5-inch increase in width owing to the vehicle's wider tracks. While early Series 2s used the 2-litre petrol unit from the Series 1, it was the first to utilise their 2¼ litre petrol engine, producing 72 horsepower. This would be the standard petrol unit up until the mid-80s. A 12-seat station wagon was produced, which classed the vehicle as a bus, meaning in the UK it was exempt from purchase and special vehicle taxes. It was therefore cheaper than any of the smaller station wagon models, meaning it was a huge seller. This layout remained throughout series production, and up to 2002 with the Defender. The Series 2 was replaced by the 2A in 1961. These models are quite difficult to distinguish. One tell is that the headlamps protrude on the Series 2 but are more flush on the 2A. I don't have time to delve into the Series 2A in this video, but one of my most popular videos from way back when is the restoration of a Matchbox 12C Land Rover Safari. That is based on a Series 2A, so do go and take a look if you haven't seen that before. For two seemingly simple models, this process has taken far longer than I'd originally thought. It's easy to take these things for granted sometimes, especially when on occasion I've pumped out 5-minute restoration videos for other basic castings. Let's put these two back together now. Both are simple enough to reacquaint the body to the base, and both use the same method: a tongue and slot fitment at the front and a narrow rivet at the back. So here were my Morestone and Benbros AA Road Service Land Rovers. I realise now that I haven't mentioned that the AA are the Automobile Association, a British motoring association best known for providing vehicle breakdown cover and recovery. Both of these certainly needed the latter, especially the bent Benbros model with its caved-in base. That's meant to be the taller of the two. So let's take a look at them both with their repairs and new coats of paint. The lighter yellow Morestone has got a great new coat of paint and is really standing out with its black trim. Just take a look at the stance of the Benbros though. It's sitting upright and standing tall. The repairs to its base were a nightmare, but it was well worth it for this final result. Each model has its own pros and cons when compared to one another, but let's take a quick look at each in more detail. The Morestone was devoid of nearly all of its paint. I didn't mention this earlier, but it wasn't until after I'd finished editing the video that I noticed that big chunk missing below the windshield. I wonder whether it was a factory casting error, as this is so clean and doesn't look like your typical damage from playwear. Besides that, the axles had been bent, giving it a squashed appearance and wonky looking wheels. Most desperately though, it needed a new lick of paint. And what a difference that lick of paint makes. I really like the black painted metal wheels of this Morestone model. It's a shame the later models didn't receive front end trim after the spare wheel was removed from it. That's where the Benbros has the trump card, but pretty much all aspects otherwise are better with the Morestone. The rear is a letdown on this model though, as it just seems like an afterthought. Anyway, let's turn our attention to the Benbros. This model was poorly designed by Benbros. Its base was a weak point with its gaping hole in the middle of it. The metal was also incredibly fragile. After breaking the bent base, I had to put it back together like a jigsaw puzzle. But once that was done, what a difference it made to the model's overall appearance. Despite the Morestone having better overall trim and specs, I think this transformation is the more surprising of the two. No, I don't like the yellow wheels or the lack of trim to the sides, but the turnaround for this model to me feels more stark. Just look at where it came from. It was destined for the bin. Now it stands tall and looks great for it. If you've enjoyed these restorations and the comparison of the two, leave a like and let me know your favourite resto in the comments. Hit the subscribe button to stay on track with my latest works, but all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.